What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the stream. Happy New Year. Hope you're doing well. I am Ian Douglas. I'm the author of this website, Tech Interview Guide. And this whole live stream is about helping people get better at tech interviews. So, welcome to the new year. Thanks for the new follows, Chicken Heed, sorry. Saw you followed a couple of minutes back, so thanks for that. Thanks for everybody that followed over the holidays. Took some time off over the holidays. I was going to stream last Sunday and decided I was going to take the night off and just get ready for holidays and things like that. But then we also had like the fires going through Colorado. We weren't affected, but some people we know were, and definitely want to send out lots of thoughts and support to the people that got affected by the fires that came through Colorado. We were one neighborhood away from a neighborhood that was on like evacuation alert. Had they been evacuated, our neighborhood would have been on alert, and we probably would have got out of town. We were ready to pack and like get out the door. It was ridiculous how fast that thing came through on Friday. So hopefully everyone else is doing well. Hope your holidays were good. I'm still on the job hunt. I got some good interviews lined up for this week. I did postpone one that I was going to do tomorrow just because of the fires and busyness and things like that going on. Just wanted to make sure that I had enough time to prepare. And so as I've coached on the stream before, like people have asked, like, how do you postpone an interview? Just be honest with them. Just say like, hey, had a lot going on over the holidays, had stuff going on with, these fires and helping some people out. So I got to push this by like a week. Except they're all out of the office, so they won't even get my email till tomorrow morning. I was supposed to interview in the afternoon. Mcode 913, good to see you in chat. Hello. Hope your holidays were good. Got my favorite hydration going on here. I got my watermelon mint and my cranberry orange. Very yummy combination, or combinations rather. Anyway, Mcode, how are your holidays? How you doing? Happy New Year to you. Definitely want to stay hydrated over the next couple of days. I got a lot of talking to do. Got lots and lots of interviews coming up. I've got like just a quick intro one to do in the morning, and then aside from that, I'm gonna take most of tomorrow and just continue to help people out with that need help with support after the fire and things like that. Probably see if I can do some volunteer work or something. Anyway, hope you're doing good. Tonight I was just gonna go through a bunch of Q&A. I've got a ton of Q&A kind of banked up. I've expanded my reach as far as like people asking me questions, so people can typically send me questions on LinkedIn and Twitter, but over the holidays I decided I was going to answer a couple of questions on Quora, which I hadn't done in a while, and now suddenly I'm getting flooded people asking me questions on Quora. So Wallfire, good to see you in chat. Is it your first time in my chat? I've seen you around like everyone else's stream. Is it your first time here? Welcome. Good to have you come by. Mcode, my holidays were pretty busy. They started out pretty low key, but then they got busy over the last several days with stuff going on here in Colorado. But yeah, generally doing pretty good. Definitely want to take some time and recharge a little bit this week. Shoulder's doing good. Got most of my mobility back. Just working on some strength training now for the surgery that I had last summer, but so far so good. Let's talk about New Year's resolutions. New Year's resolutions are always fun. I'm curious if anybody's broken their New Year's resolutions yet. It's towards the end of the day on the second day of January. Anybody want to admit to breaking any New Year's resolutions yet? First time here, sorry, hardly ever free to go on Twitch. No worries. Good to have you here, though. I haven't broken any New Year's resolutions yet. I typically don't make New Year's resolutions. I tried in the past, and a couple of things that I've sort of settled on is just kind of ongoing goals. Is I try to think through like November and December, like what do I want to learn in the new year? And then I typically ask for that stuff for Christmas. So like a lot of books on management or architecture, scalability, things like that. And I decided over the holidays, I was actually going to start learning React. And so I've started getting into that. Not that I want to become a front-end developer, but it's something that I've been out of for a long time, and I decided it was time to start learning on some of that. Did a couple of intro interviews and just getting to know people from different companies. I've got like one really good prospect lining up so far, which is great. So I'm excited to see where that's going to lead this week and maybe next week. But yeah, I decided my two kind of ongoing goals were, what do I want to learn next year? And then how do I like gear up and get ready for that? And then the second one is 10%. So a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to lose 50 pounds. I'm going to lose 100 pounds. I'm going to like run a marathon, or I'm going to like go to the gym like 10 times a week kind of thing. And my recommendation is do 10%. Save 10% more than you did last time. Walk 10% farther than you did last time. Run 10% farther than you did last time. Don't try to aim for a marathon. Just aim for 10%. And when you do that 10%, do another 20% or do another 10%. So don't try to aim to like, I'm going to lose 100 pounds. Lose 10% of your body weight if you need to lose weight. And I'm an advocate now for losing weight. I was super heavy for a long time, and kind of got my life back on track and lost a lot of weight. But I tell people now, like, aim for 10%. Don't try to lose 100 pounds. Just aim for like 10% of your body weight. So if you weigh 200 pounds, lose 20 pounds. And aim for that. Once you lose 20 pounds, aim for another 10%. And that goal will get smaller and smaller as you lose weight. As you run, it'll get farther and farther as you gain distance and endurance and whatever. Don't say, I'm going to deadlift 500 pounds. Like, deadlift 10% more than you did last time. Things like that. And you'll find that those small goals will start to compound, and you'll start to gain some happiness in seeing those little achievements happen. And you'll be much more likely to keep setting and attaining those goals. So aim for 10%. And then the other one is, what do you want to learn this year? And how are you going to do that? So for me, my goal this year was to start off by learning React. And so I started that over the end of December, but then things got busy and I had to put it aside. But I actually signed up for a nano degree at Udacity for it. And my thinking there was, well, it's paid, so A, I'm more likely to do it, and B, they have actual projects, actual curriculum, and actual deadlines to hit, plus people are going to give you feedback. You know that people are going to give you feedback. And so I like going to Udacity for those kinds of things. Plus, they were able to give me a coupon code for 75% off, so it's only $100 a month for doing it at Udacity instead of the typical like $400 a month, which is just out of my budget right now. So that was my first goal, is to learn React. And then from there, I'm also studying for the AWS Architecture Associate level certification. And then my goal is to get the equivalent on Google and to get the equivalent on Microsoft Azure as well. And my long-term goal is to like get back into architecture someday, like 5 years down the road. I want to get back into like architect type of roles. But I've got some really good prospects lining up so far for developer relations, so I'm pretty excited about that. Got some pretty good applications out there, a couple of companies that I've been chatting with that are going really great. So yeah, we'll see kind of how it plays out this week. Hopefully I get a little bit of downtime and rest up a little bit, but yeah, so that's kind of my update. Squall says, feels like 2020 part 3. Yeah, so it doesn't feel like a new year yet. I hear you. If I made one, it would be to hit the 30 or 60,000 salary mark. Fair. That's fair. Yeah, my brain is a little shut off. Squall, I just realized where I know you from. That's how quick my mind works. And yeah, I haven't done as much gaming as I would have liked to. I was hoping to get back into Marvel Strike Force for a while, and that's how I know Squall. We're in an alliance or something on Marvel Strike Force, and just, yeah, things got busy through December with interviewing, and then, as you all know, that have been kind of paying attention on my stream, like some of those interviews didn't go well, and I decided I was gonna like hit pause for the holidays. And my thinking was, well, I'll just hit pause for the holidays, and then I'll have all kinds of time for gaming. And yeah, just holiday time's not a good time for me for gaming. Too busy cooking and like shopping and just trying to take care of family and stuff like that. And then these crazy fires came through Colorado. So, but yeah, thankfully we weren't impacted, but some people we know were. Anyhow, so yeah, the whole goal of my stream is just to help people get better at tech interviews. So go check out the website. I'm still working on the email series. Again, that also got shelved. November got busy, interviewing, and so I shelved it. And then December got busy because I thought I was going to get a job, and so I shelved it. So I'm getting back into writing the email series again. So I don't have an ETA. I'm not going to set an ETA. That's my other goal. Is I'm just going to stop setting deadlines for myself, and just when it's done, it's done. But do hold me accountable, because I do want to finish those new email series and get those out. I'm thinking about doing some giveaways at some point, and I'm going to do the giveaways based on subscribers. And so I'll be doing like a big marketing push on that once those email series are up and running and live and edited and proofread and all that kind of stuff. Once those actually go live, I'm probably going to say like, hey, like, using March as an example, like if we do this thing in March, then anybody subscribed in the month of March, goes into a drawing or something, or every day that you're subscribed in March gives you like an entry into the drawing or something like that. Just that way I can catch people that like drift off or unsubscribe or whatever, and then do some kind of giveaway. Still been 3D printing those dragons like crazy. The rainbow glow in the dark one is just ridiculous. But had some good times giving those away back in December. DG, how's it going? Good to see you in chat. You start your first day at the new job in 2 days. Yeah. Any advice for the first day? Your first day is mostly going to be HR paperwork. So the first day is going to be like just lots of filling out forms and signing, contracts and non-disclosure agreements, that kind of stuff. That'll take probably a couple hours. Choosing your benefits, setting up 401k if they do any of that stuff. And then aside from that, setting, like if they've already shipped you a laptop or setting up your system, I would do that. I'm a big fan of, let me drop this in chat. I'm a big fan of this for setting up your laptop. It's github.com Thoughtbot/laptop. Provided you're going to be on a MacBook. Check out this link on GitHub. So github/Thoughtbot/laptop. It's a startup script that the team at Thoughtbot uses to kind of provision their own laptops. And it takes like 10-15 minutes, but it downloads everything you possibly need as a front-end developer on a MacBook. So it'll set up like MongoDB and Postgres and Z Shell and Ruby and JavaScript and Node and Homebrew and like all the things. Starts with Homebrew and then just downloads everything through Homebrew. But it's a really great system, and it's nice and quick. And once it finishes, you're all set up and ready to go. So if you're getting a MacBook, like start running that on your MacBook, but like get your paperwork and stuff. Aside from that, I mean, I would say your first week is probably going to be a lot of orientation and onboarding, learning about the system. Document the heck out of everything. Get a brand new notebook. I'm a big fan of these like Moleskine notebooks. Get a notebook, write everything down. If you want to type it, you can, but if you type it on like a Google Doc or something that you can then share with the company. Find a way to share that back with the team. Have them check it for accuracy. It's a lot easier for them to check it for accuracy than it is for them to write it in the first place. But while they're explaining things, let them know that you're going to document the heck out of everything that you learn in that first week, and that you want to make this like, accessible documentation for like everybody, and make it available on a Google Drive or something like that for everyone to use. But have them kind of spot check it for accuracy, and then have the team like continue to go through that. And what you'll find as a company is the next person they hire can now look at your notes, and their onboarding gets faster. And the next person, and hopefully they're going to contribute as well for any like new things or any changes, stuff like that. But to say like, hey, here's like a system architecture diagram. This is kind of what we do. The next person that gets hired, now it's like, okay, well, this is what's changed since the last time. And so let's just go in and like update the documents. It's a lot easier to maintain things than to do it the first time. So if they don't have it, you're first, which is going to be a lot of extra work on you. But to then turn around and give that back to the company and say, hey, I want to make onboarding easier and better for the next person, the company's going to be like, oh, you're amazing. And they're going to love you for it. I had a student at Turing do that, and it blew them away. They went in and they're like, plunk, here's all my documentation for the next person you hire. And they were like incredibly impressed. And that person got a raise in a hurry, and like, not quite like team lead, but they were like now in charge of hey, let's help keep documentation up to date and stuff like that. So Swivel, thanks for the follow, appreciate it. Happy New Year to you. Hope you're all doing well. HFW levels. Am I on the job hunt myself? I am right now, yes. So I've applied for a bunch of developer relations roles, which is kind of like developer education as well as advocacy. You're kind of the middleman. You're kind of the voice in the middle for both your end user as well as your product team. And so you get to go to the customer and say, hey, this is what the product team has been cooking up. And then you can get feedback from them and you take that back to the product team and you can kind of talk shop with them and say, hey, this is what customers are facing. Like when they're trying to implement our software, like this is what they're actually seeing. As easy as it is for us as the developers, like we develop an API or we develop some software, we're like, oh yeah, easy peasy. We built the thing. Of course we know it. But remember that your users, when you develop software, your users are basically junior devs. No matter how senior they are, if it's the first time they've seen your software, your application, they're now a junior dev. And so you get to kind of play that middleman. There's not a good like gender neutral sort of term for that, but you're sort of the liaison between the two, where you get to take product feedback from the customer back to your product team, and you get to take all the new things from the product team and present that to the customer. So webinars, tech conferences, meetups, live streaming, things like that. And I'm super excited about a handful of them. A couple of them are pretty big names, like Square, Block, and Postman actually got back to me over the holidays, and so they're excited to talk to me too, and I'm super jazzed because I taught Postman at Turing. Who else? I got Shopify looked at one of my applications, but they never got back to me. I do have a connection on LinkedIn who's going to make a referral to Snap for me tomorrow, so I need to get in contact with them. Couple of InfoSec kind of companies to do some DevRel work for. A competitor to New Relic. I applied to them at Datadog, and so they got in touch with me, so I've been chatting with them already. Who else? Oh, and there's like an IoT communication hardware company, and so they make like little cellular modems for like Raspberry Pis. And they're looking for a third developer relations person on the team. I'm like, oh, that would be cool. We'll get to nerd out on little hardware projects. And so that developer relations, it would, of course, be the education side of like teaching people how to use their hardware and how to code it in the software, but also just coming up with my own projects and building the little circuits and live streaming, like, here's the circuit design that I made. Now let's go write the code to actually control this thing. And now we can see the communication, like pushing data up into the cloud and stuff like that. That would be a really pretty crazy cool job. So a lot of really good opportunities. I'm actually really happy I didn't get that job at Amazon after all. I know I really wanted that job, but yeah, I've had just way more really cool opportunities kind of come down my path over the last 2-3 weeks. So pretty excited to see where that goes. Zooey, good to see you in chat as well. I have not heard back from Peloton yet, no. I did put my application in, but I haven't heard anything back. And by applying, I gave my resume and cover letter to someone that I taught with at Turing. And there's like a couple of instructors that work at Peloton now, as well as a whole bunch of students, some of them that I actually taught. And so there's like a whole team of Turing people. The problem is I would be like a director of engineering above managers above them. And so I'd be like their boss's boss, which feels a little weird considering I was like peer level instructor with some of them. And I have managed managers before, and it'll be interesting to see whether that role works out too. I really like the idea of developer education though. And so I'm really amped up on the idea of getting into education and advocacy and more of that DevRel type of role. So we'll see how that goes. Just backing up in chat a little bit from Swivel. I'm a new grad with a CS degree focusing on software engineering. Any tips for job hunting? Glad you're here. My whole channel is about how to get through the job hunt. So yeah, good to see you in chat. Let's address that for a sec. And then they followed up in chat. I've been applying for a few months, past 5 or 6 coding interviews with flying colors, but then got ghosted. Since been applying to other places, I have an internship that pays the bills for now. Cool. I mean, good for you for having an internship at least. That's huge. looking for a job while you have a job is much easier than being unemployed and trying to convince people that you're worth taking a shot. The fact that you've got an internship already is going to speak volumes. I would continue to talk to that company and see about converting into a full-time role if that's a possibility. If that's not a possibility, that's okay. MEB, hi. Sorry, missed your chat. Happy New Year to you too. When you're job hunting, if there's no possibility of converting, then I would say the job hunt as a new grad is generally harder. And several of the folks that are in chat right now are like coming out of code schools. They're also coming out of like coding programs of some sort, and they're also on the job hunt for the first time. And so my whole website, techinterview.guide, is all about like how to get ready for the job hunt, how to get a resume together, how to get cover letters together, how to sort of prepare for questions and so on. And so yeah, this whole channel is basically about all that. And so if you want, you can go check out my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel's got like all my previous recordings, and you don't have to sit through like hours and hours and hours, but I did make some playlists where I take these kinds of questions and I cut them up into smaller pieces, and then I make like just little playlists out of these little like 5 to 10 minute videos. So you can go check out, there's like a playlist on how do I apply for a job. There's a playlist on like just what's the general process. There's a playlist for how do I like manage the interview itself. Like now that I'm in the interview, there's a whole playlist on behavioral questions and a whole playlist on technical questions. So you can go check out those playlists for what you think is appropriate. What I would say for the job hunt though, is you really need to start with company research. And you can find that video on YouTube as well. I do a whole video breakdown on company research, what's important to you as far as like company culture and so on. The chat's starting to fly by. I'm going to try to catch up on stuff. Dota 2, good to see you in chat too. There's like, I would start with the company research, figure out what kinds of companies do you want to apply to, what like what's important about that company, not just the fact that they're willing to hire you and pay you. I mean, that's obviously important, but like what kind of company is it? Who do they serve as a customer? You know, what is their product? Is that product something that you actually care about? Like, you care about the company mission? Where are they based? Is it going to be remote only? Are you someday going to have to go into the office? And if so, like, do you need to relocate? Like, sometimes those are all factors. And then figure out from there, like once you build that list, now you basically the video that I've got on YouTube talks about making a spreadsheet about this. And you start with making a column of all these factors that are important to you, and then each page of the spreadsheet is a new industry, like marketing and you know, energy conservation and gaming, or like whatever kinds of industries you're interested in. And then on each of those tabs, you'll start to list in the columns the different companies, and then take those parameters and fill in the information that you can find about them. Is it the tech stack? Is it the location? Is it a pet-friendly office? And I always tell people, like, that could be important, because if you've got allergies and you can't go to the office because of that, then that's an accommodation that they need to make for you. You know, things like that. And then as you can find information about the company, fill it in. And if you can't find information, that's okay, because now what you can do is you can go find people at that company to network with and say, hey, I have some specific questions to ask you about the job at Acme Inc. And could you take like 10 minutes on a phone call just to answer like 2 or 3 questions for me? And you'll ask them to either verify the information you could find or to fill in the gaps for the information you could not find. That's where you start with the company research. From there, then you can kind of maintain those networking relationships with people. But that's where you're going to then figure out, do I want to apply to that company? Now that I've been able to fill out that information or not find it, does that sit okay with me? Do I still want to apply for a job there? And if so, go apply for a job there. And if not, then you know you've dodged a potential problem there. So that's where I would start, is with the company research. Get that networking going, because networking is definitely going to get you more job interviews and networking from there. Now, back to the swivel, for the jobs where you got ghosted, I would always follow up and ask for feedback, and just say like, hey, what happened? Like, I went through the interview, I thought I did well, I've had 0 feedback. See if you can find the people on LinkedIn that interviewed you, or see if you can find the hiring manager on LinkedIn that might be in charge of that team, and reach out directly to them and be like, what gives? Like, I got ghosted. I got no feedback at all. I don't know where I stand. I'm still interested in the job. could somebody please get back to me? It's also a question of how long ago you got ghosted, because it could have just, was it that they shut down over the holidays and they just didn't get back to you, or was it something else? But I would always pester them, at least once a week. I would keep emailing them until they tell you to go away. Or until they respond and just say hey, you didn't have enough experience or whatever, at which point then you can kind of follow up gently with them and say, well, you saw from my resume and my background that of course I didn't have the experience, but you still brought me through the interview process anyway. So I'm curious, what was it about my profile that did stand out? And then what else can I work on to continue to succeed next time? Ask them for that kind of specific feedback, and bug them till they get down. But yeah, hunt them down on LinkedIn. Exactly. Yep. Just kind of scanning back through chat here. Dota, good to see you in chat. Been playing for a few months. Oh yeah, we got that one. And then this one was a poor fit from my point of view. I think the tech guy realized it and said they couldn't hire me. That's weird. Yeah, sometimes it's good to kind of dodge those for sure. Yeah, it's definitely called a red flag. It's been fun to play with CT scans and TensorFlow for AI. That's kind of cool. How do you feel about remote work as a first position? So remote work as a first job can be a little tricky. I think a lot more companies are a lot better about it now than they have been in the past. As far as onboarding and keeping you engaged and staying connected and keeping that communication open. You as the new employee, you're going to need to take a lot of initiative to reach out for questions when you have questions, because you will have questions. And so there's nothing inherently bad with taking a remote job as a first job. A lot of companies are shutting down again because of Omicron and COVID and stuff flaring back up. And so I haven't heard of companies pausing hiring again because of it. I think companies have figured out hey, you know what, we've got people working remote anyway, we can keep hiring remote, that's fine. And they'll have pretty much honed their process by now. If not, yeah, it's kind of on them as far as how well they've adapted to remote life over time. But those can be questions that you ask the recruiter when you get in those first phone calls. How did the company adapt to working remote? How is it continuing to go? What kind of improvements and process changes have they made over time? The recruiter may not know all of the answers to those, but then you can ask the hiring manager on the next phone call and just say, hey, I'm just kind of curious, I'm a junior dev and coming in as my first job being remote, what kinds of things can I expect as far as the company and that process and so on. You definitely, during those first two phone screens with the recruiter and the hiring manager, you absolutely want to highlight, this is what I bring to the team. This is how I'm going to make things better. This is what the skills that I bring. Don't highlight what you want from them yet. But when you get to the point on that second interview where they say, do you have any questions for me? That's where you want to jump in and say yeah, tell me about the remote culture. What's that like on the team? And just, what's that support system going to be like for a brand new dev coming in the team, whether they're senior or junior? How do you support new people? How do you do onboarding? And get that kind of information from them. And then just let them know, hey, my typical MO is I document the heck out of everything and I want to share that back with the team. How often can I check in to spot check that documentation for accuracy and things like that? And it'll impress their socks off. So cool, just trying to keep up with chat. Lots of you chatting tonight. It's great. HFW levels, don't mean to be rude, only asking because your LinkedIn is shared. Any reason why you're only director at Stream for 7 months? Yes, very good reason why. And I don't mind talking about this at all. So I'm happy that you asked. I'm happy to be as transparent as possible on my stream. And so I worked at Stream before I went into teaching. And then when I wrapped up my teaching at Turing, I went back to Stream with the idea that they were hiring me to do sort of internal education on the team. So it was kind of a change from developer relations where you're doing education to the outside world. This one was going to be more internally focused. The plan that I had with the CEO when they brought me back on the team was that I was going to help kind of review their interview process, because they had been hiring a bunch of people and then letting them go relatively quickly because they found little gaps in their knowledge. And so what they wanted to do is they wanted to find a way to improve their interview process where I could kind of help pinpoint okay, well, M Code seems like a really good candidate. They've got really good collaboration, really good communication. They seem like they're going to be good on the team, but they're missing like a couple of technical skills. In the past, they would have been like, oh, they don't have the technical skill, we're not going to hire them. And my argument was, if they're a good person, hire them for the team. Bring up that morale, bring that extra experience and background or whatever onto the team. It's going to make the team better. We'll educate them. Like, we want to invest in their education. And so I'll train them, or I'll find curriculum for them for what we want to train them on. And so that was the idea. So the first month of that job, I basically was just writing curriculum on how to write curriculum for other people that wanted to go in and add their own sort of education components. And then at the end of July, I needed surgery for my shoulder, and that took me out for 2 months. And when I got back, basically I hadn't been involved in any interviewing and any training at all, because most of the people they were hiring were over in Europe and Asia. And so being involved in their interview process and the training process just wasn't conducive with time zone differences. And so I kind of like honestly sat around twiddling my thumbs some days, wondering like, what do I do here? Like, why am I being paid to like literally produce no work and help nobody? And so I had a chat with the CEO, and I'm like, look, I'm not effective in the role based in North America. This role needs to be in the Amsterdam office. And both of the founders agreed. They're like, yeah, you're right. I tried to move into their DevRel team again, because that's where I had been before. But I'm mostly a back-end developer, and their DevRel team was really putting a push on mobile and gaming, and it just wasn't going to be a fit for me. So, because those aren't really things that I'm as interested in anymore. I've done the gaming thing, and it's meh. It's fun, and it would have been interesting to find ways of like building Stream into like gaming and Unreal Engine and you know, making those kinds of plugins and SDKs and things like that, but it wasn't as interesting to me. So I opted to step away. And it's a tough decision to say like, hey, I'm going to quit my job and not have another job to go to. But I had started interviewing at that point. So I had a couple of good prospects, one of them being New Relic, that I really wanted to go work at New Relic, and they put a pause on their hiring. And it was just super unfortunate. And so while I was waiting to hear back from New Relic, I started interviewing with Amazon. I also didn't get the job at Amazon. And I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to take a break over the holidays. So that's basically my story there. So yeah, it ended up being a relatively short job. But being able to speak to the impact that I was able to have, because it has come up on a couple of interviews, where they're like, you know, tell me about the most recent job and like what happened and like, or, you know, why did you leave your last job kind of thing. And while you could go in and give them the whole backstory, I think that kind of question is really important. And this can be like a kind of a behavioral kind of question that I'm pretty sure I've answered in the past. I actually heard someone else's podcast where they say like, treat it as though you're talking about like an ex-girlfriend, like you're trying to date somebody new, and you don't want to like, you know, just dump all the garbage about your last girlfriend and why that relationship didn't work out. You want to like quickly pivot and say like, it just didn't work out. I'm more excited to talk about our relationship and like, you know, where this is going. And so you kind of want to do the same thing in the job hunt as well. If they say like, what happened at that last job? Why didn't you stay? Instead of dwelling on all the things that went wrong, I could just say like, it just wasn't a good fit. That job actually needed to be based in the Amsterdam office. And so I made a whole bunch of recommendations to the team, like who that role should report to. I set up some infrastructure, I set up some education, I set up some of the training, but then I decided to step away from the job because it wasn't a good fit with the time zone difference. And, you know, but now I'm stepping into this role, and this is how I want to like continue to do education and so on. And so I can like make that whole explanation that I was very transparent about with all of you. I can compact that down into like a 30-second blurb of like, didn't work out because of time zones, you know, and this is what I'm looking forward to, you know, kind of going forward, and just deflect the answer and don't dwell so much on what went wrong at that job, because you never want to badmouth an employer. Excuse me. You never want to talk negatively about an employer in an interview. Excuse me, I'm going to hydrate for a second. Trash Deb, thanks for the reminder to hydrate. You never want to badmouth an employer. And so as much as possible, you want to emphasize like the impact that you did have and the good things that did happen at that job. And now you decided to make a change, and this role is more in line with what you want to be doing with your career, is basically how I'd address that. kind of looking back through chat here. Lots of back and forth between Dota and Swivel about AI and CAT scans and medical systems and things like that. So Swivel, one thing to note there is if you've got experience in the medical field, even if that's not what you want to do long term, it could be a way to get your foot in the door and just get any kind of job with a health company or a medical company or something along those lines, at least to get your foot in the door, start getting that professional level experience, and then like start looking for another job like 6 months down the road. It will feel like a short amount of time. But then like if that next job is not in the medical field, then you could just say like, yeah, you know what I did. When they say like, why did you leave after a short amount of time? You can kind of do the same kind of thing and say, well, I had some internships in medical systems. I was doing AI with medical systems. I thought that's what I wanted to do. Once I got in that job, I realized that's not what I wanted to do. This job that with you is more in line with where I want my career to go, because this is what I want to do in the future, and start talking about your future goals and how this company matches that. And so you can totally spin the words on that. I joined a Twitter space over the holidays, and they were asking about people that were making career changes. And so I actually got on the Twitter space, and I was sharing some thoughts with people too about resumes and how the resume should be not an archive of everything that you've ever done. It needs to be a representation of what you're bringing to that team. And so you don't want to list every single thing that you've ever done, every job, and so on. It just needs to be the things that that team is going to care about. And that's really what you want to talk about when you get into that interview, is say like, yeah, I thought I wanted to do medical systems just to get my foot in the door, but I realized once I actually got in there day to day, it wasn't what I wanted to do. What I want to do instead is A, B, and C. Your company is like completely in line with that. You know, and that A, B, and C should be part of their job post. Like that's basically what you want to tell them, is like, this job is like exactly where I want to go. You're going in that direction. I'm also going in that direction. Let's go in that direction together, is basically how you want to kind of spin that and sell them on that. HFW says, glad to hear you're giving advice from having experienced these challenges myself. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is why I'm here. This is why I live stream. I've been in industry now for, it'll be 26 years in April that I graduated college doing computer engineering. So I've been in the industry a long time, self-taught web development, self-taught on API development, scalability systems, architecture, self-taught on all that stuff, and applied that at every job. And you know, I ran my own web hosting company. So I've done everything from like racking servers, system administration, DevOps, deployments, writing all the software, like taking care of the full thing. You want to talk about full stack, like that's about as full stack as it gets. And so moving from that into being a hiring manager, and then back to a contributor, and then back to manager, and back to contributor, and then in instruction, and then back into like a manager role. I flip-flop back and forth a lot because I like doing both. I like the coaching aspect, but I also like hands-on contributing. And so my whole idea for doing this stream was that I want to be able to share my experience with people and share the challenges that I go through and how I would answer these questions, but also talk about like, yeah, when I've done interviews, like these are some answers that other people gave me and what stood out about them, good or bad. And so this whole stream is about just sharing that experience. I also really like having people on the stream to share their experience. So the next 3 Thursdays, I've got guests lined up for each of the following or the upcoming Thursday slots. And so I want to get back on that regular schedule where Thursday is like having someone else on the show. And I've got some really cool people that I've interacted with on Twitter that I'm like, would you please come on my stream? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. And so I've got 2 developers. One of them actually streams here on Twitch. Mike Chen is going to be on the 3rd week. The 2nd week is a guy named Taylor who does a YouTube series called, darn, I forgot it now. But he does live streaming where he'll talk to someone about interview process, and then sometimes he'll work on a code challenge with them. So I'm going to have Taylor on that 2nd week. This week, this coming Thursday, I have someone named Jamira coming on the stream, and they went through a code school, and they've got some really cool background experience as well. And so again, I just want to have like other people share their perspective, because yeah, my whole stream is about this website and all the stuff that I've documented and the email series that I have and like all that stuff that you can go sign up for free over there. No obligation, no ads, nothing. Just go check it out. But I like having my position as a white male in tech to be able to use my platform to help give other people a voice. And so this month is going to be a lot of other voices, which I'm really excited about. Because I don't want to just be another guy like spouting his opinion on the internet. There's enough of us white dudes out there sharing their opinions. But I really want to be able to use my platform to help give other people voice and share advice in have opportunities where they might not have otherwise had those opportunities. So really, really excited to have some of these folks on the stream this month. And I'll be lining up like future guests as well. So that's the plan. So the next 3 Thursdays, I'm going to have a guest on the stream each week. So yeah, Jameer is going to be this week, and then the following week is going to be with Taylor. No, sorry, the 13th is someone named Eric Garcia. Sorry, I'm actually going to be on Taylor's YouTube stream on the 14th. I do eventually want to get him back on my stream. That might happen at the end of the month. Yeah, sorry. Eric Garcia is going to be on the 13th, and then on the 20th is going to be Mike Chen. So yeah, really excited to have all of them and get them in here. There's also a guy on Instagram. I think he goes by the Dev Life on Instagram. He's not really self-taught. Well, he went to code school, I think. And he's got like really good interview advice and things like that too. And so it'll be, I really want to get him on the stream at some point. So we'll see. Let's see. Trash Dev hit me up for a dad joke. Hey, Trash Dev. After an unsuccessful harvest, why did the farmer decide to pursue a career in music? He had a ton of sick beats. Beats, B-E-E-T-S. All right. Cool. Let's follow up on chat. Yeah, if you had 20 jobs over 6 months each, it would definitely be your flag. I would say in the first couple of years of your career, it's okay to have short jobs. Not super short. Like, you don't want to just spend 4 months and leave, and they say, well, why'd you leave? And it's like, I learned everything possible. It's like, you couldn't have learned everything possible in 4 months. But you can kind of say, like, you know what? Like, I'm still learning about the industry. I'm learning what I want to do. And every new role that I've taken, I've learned where I want to be. There's a guy that I listen to on the internet. His name's Jordan Peterson. He's a psychologist, and I don't subscribe to everything that he says, but he's had a couple of like really interesting things to say. And one of them is how he talks to people, and they're like, I don't know what I want to do when I finish college or university, and they get paralyzed by trying to analyze all of their choices. And his advice to them is like, you don't have to know. You just have to start moving in some direction, because then when you get there, you've got a new perspective on things and go, oh wait, I want to go this way. And once you get there, you're like, nope, I want to go that way. And once you get there, nope, I want to go that way. And you can pivot. But to just stay put and say, no, I don't know what I want to do yet, and so I'm just going to stay where I am, well, then your perspective doesn't change. Everything still looks the same to you in front of you, because you haven't actually gone down any path. But if you go down a path and then realize this is the wrong path, that's okay. At least you've moved somewhere. You've done something. And so I would say, like, use that in 2022. Like, just make a move in some direction if you're not sure. And sometimes that's all you need to kind of get that push in a dev job. And so if those first couple of jobs are short, that's okay. If you only stay for 8 months to a year at those first couple of jobs, that's all right. As long as you let them know, like, hey, I'm looking for a place that I can stay a long term. And these first couple of jobs, I was just trying to figure out what it was I wanted to do long term. Now that I've got that sorted out, I've been in the industry and I've been on a couple of teams and I've got a little bit more experience. I have an idea of what I want to do and where I want to go. This job is it. This position seems to be a really good match for where I want to go. And this is what I figured out. And so it's about the skills that you bring, but also the direction that you're heading. And if you can let them know that the direction that they're going is also the direction you want to go, then it's a really good selling point. And don't spend a ton of time talking about like, oh yeah, well that job was, you know, just not good, or I didn't like the deployment thing, or it was really hard to get feedback on my code, or like, don't dwell on the negative stuff. Just say like, yeah, I thought that that's what I wanted to do, and once I got in it, realized that wasn't what I wanted to do. And so I made the decision to move on and start pursuing and head in this direction instead. I saw this job post, and this is exactly what I want to do, and this is why we're both aligned and like headed in the right direction. I'm going to be a great fit for this job. And you know, now I'm also bringing some professional experience with me, and so I'm not like a brand new grad. I've got some experience and so on, and you'll be able to sell them on that much better during those interviews. Of course, it's still up to you to get through the interview at that point, but you can always start that conversation that way. Yeah, these are good questions so far. Appreciate all the chat going on today. Let's see what else is going on here. So Dota mentioned about contracting gigs. Like I've sort of had iandouglas.com as a business on my resume for a long time. Like I think I registered that domain name back in like 1997 or something, and I've maintained it over time. And there were a couple of jobs where I had like a very short job. Like I took a job literally for a month, and I walked away from that job. It's the only job I ever literally walked out on because I hated the job. But I basically chalked it up to like, oh yeah, it was just a consulting job. It wasn't. I was actually a full-time employee, but I tell people that it was just part of my consulting work, and that I went in and I helped them for a month, and I decided to move on and got into the gaming industry instead, and that's when I went full-time at Armor Games. And so you could make a little consultancy thing on your resume, and just, if you've got like a couple of these really short jobs, you can just frame it as consultancy work and just say, you know what, when I graduated, I wanted the flexibility of working for multiple clients and taking on a variety of projects to try to figure out what I wanted to do. And so it like literally here in Colorado, it costs you like $50 to register a limited liability company, an LLC. It may be the same in your state. Go register an LLC, call it Dota 2 LLC, whatever you want to call it. It just has to be a unique name, and just wrap all those jobs under your LLC like consultancy. And then they never have to know that they were actual employment. You can still get like referral letters and whatever from them if they want to call, or just have them write a referral letter and then like forward it on, so that they don't actually call to say like, were they actually an employee or a consultant. But just say it was part of your consultancy. Little white lie, but it'll get you through that a lot more. But I've done that in the past, and just say like, yeah, I'm gonna continue, my iandouglas.com. I literally actually just registered an LLC last week. That's why I know it was $50. But yeah, I actually registered iandouglas.com as an LLC, so that in 2022, as I take on consulting work, I can kind of filter everything through that and just do business taxes on it, and just have that as like my side income for like my mock interviews, and all that stuff is now going to go through all of that. And then I may brand Tech Interview Guide as like a division of iandouglas.com LLC, because I do want to rebrand the channel here on Twitch. I do want to be like twitch.tv/like Tech Interview Guide or something like that, just so that this isn't necessarily under my personal name anymore. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm probably going to like change my names around. So I've already registered the Twitch ID that I want, and I'm going to see if the Twitch team can just swap the usernames, so that way I don't lose all my followers. But then I'll go live as like the Tech Interview Guide username or something like that. And then I'll wrap that under the LLC as well. Not that I'm worried about like somebody suing me, because I've got disclaimers all over the website. It's like, use this as is. There's no warranty expressed or implied. Like, it may get you a job, it might not. But that's okay. It's just my opinions. So anyway, HFW says, I have an opportunity to transition to a semi-management role in a small company, even though I'm new myself. Could transitioning to management too early stunt your career? Nope, not at all. That next job can be whatever you want it to be, and you're basically going to shape your resume and talk about how that made you a better developer. So if your next job you want to get back into development, you can talk about like, yeah, I took this management, like I got promoted into this management role. I decided, no, I really wanted hands-on work. And so that's why I'm coming to this job, because this is going to be an individual contributor. But now I've got this experience where I've been, in that lead position. I've done one-on-ones. And you might find that they'll bring you in at like a more senior level, or like a lead developer level, maybe not like staff or principal, but no, it won't stunt you at all. It's all in how you talk about it. It's all in how you present that during the interview, as far as how you present the experience that you gained and how that's going to help them as a company. So no, it won't limit you at all. And I use the same explanation for people that are like, well, should I get a QA job to at least get in the tech industry? Because some people think that once you get a QA job, that's all you're ever going to do, is like, they're not going to let you do anything but QA. It's like, that's not true, because at the next interview, if you say, no, I specifically wanted a QA job because that's going to make me a better developer, because now I've got a broader experience about how all these systems communicate and how they share information, and how like making a change over here impacts something over here, where instead of just being a developer on that one system and kind of having my blinders on and that's all I knew, now I'm a much better developer because I took that QA job and I'm bringing that as a skill, but I want to be a contributor. It's all how you present that. In the cover letter and in those first couple of phone calls, it's all how you talk about why that made you a better developer, and the deeper empathy that you have and things like that. So same thing with customer support. Go get a customer support job to get in the tech industry, and say like, yeah, while I was at the company, I was like tinkering on some scripting, and I shadowed some software developers for a while, and now I want to be a full-time developer. And this is how being a customer support rep or agent or whatever is making me a better developer, because I have a much deeper user empathy for what the user is experiencing and what they're going through, and that's why it's going to make me a better dev. It's all how you pitch that to them. Make it sound intentional. This was my journey on purpose because it made me a better developer. So never, ever, ever feel pigeonholed in any kind of role, whether you go down a management track or you get in like doing QA or CS. It doesn't matter. It all matters with how you present that as your choice, and how that made you a better developer for that next role, and now all this extra experience that you're bringing in, why that made you a better developer. That's all you have to explain, and that'll win them over. You don't have to dwell on like, yeah, I got stuck doing tech support for a year and a half, blah blah blah, and I hated it. And no, don't ever badmouth it. Talk about what you did learn and how that's applicable. That's all you need to bring to that interview. It'll make everything so much better. Like Dota says, yeah, I'm writing automated tests now. Most ways it's more challenging. Yeah, especially with automation, right? But now you can talk about that and say, I've automated these systems to, kind of automate the mundane, and I'm way better at doing those kinds of things. I have a better idea now about how to write really intricate tests to cover more edge cases. I'm going to be a much better developer now that I have this experience. That's all you got to tell them. And you could say like, I'm going to have like way more, testing experience than everyone else on the team put together. So like, put me in charge of the testing on the team, but like, I'm going to be a much better developer, and I'll help level up the rest of the team because I'm bringing that experience. That'll wow them. That'll like really get their interest and get you noticed for sure if you spin it like that. Taiwanese name, good to see you in chat. You can change your username on Twitch. Yeah, so I actually registered a new name and I registered the thing over there, but I want to ask Twitch to like do the switch for me just so I don't lose all my users. But yeah, I'm hoping they'll help me out with that and make it like an overnight kind of change. Let's see what else is going on in chat. I'm going on for an hour and I haven't even got to any of my QA yet. This is great. I love it. I love interacting with chat. Every one of my DevRel interviews and intros that I've done so far, they're like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I love education and I love live streaming. I love interacting with chat and just like helping people out. And all of them were like, all right, cool. And I was saying on Twitter the other day that it's so interesting to see how developer relations interviews are very different from coding interviews, where it's not like, oh, here's a leak code problem. A lot of DevRel things that are like, they want to test your technical knowledge, and some of them have had code involved, but it's typically like, yeah, go fetch this API and like show us like how you'd manipulate that data and like calculate some stats or something like that. But several of the DevRel jobs that I've had, they're like, yeah, we have an opening on our team. We just want to find the right person, then we'll figure out how to fit you in and play to the strengths that you bring and what you want to be doing. I think a lot of companies are really getting on the bandwagon of like what DevRel is really all about, like what developer relations and developer advocacy or developer evangelism, like whatever they want to call them, they're all basically kinds of the same thing. And how it's a very different interview process where it's like, okay, give us a technical presentation, like you go to a meetup and give a tech talk on something. So I'll put together like a 45-minute presentation or 20-minute presentation that I'm supposed to give in a 45-minute phone call like I did with Twilio and didn't get that job. But just putting presentations together on like, here's a little project I put together, here's me talking about it, here's me doing some live code. It's a very different experience than like the typical kind of leak code challenge. I'm still not a big fan of leak code. I'm not a fan. It has its purpose, but I think companies need to do a much better job at the very least of finding leak code challenges that are more in line with what their company does, so that yes, they're still getting good signals on how you break a problem down, how you code, how you debug, but less about like, did you memorize cracking the coding interview and like all of those algorithms? It's like, you shouldn't have to memorize that stuff. Just give me a typical kind of problem, like fetch an API and manipulate some stuff. And, you know, in this one case, they had me fetch an API and I had to calculate the average and the mean on some statistics, you know, that I would like the JSON payload that came in had some numeric data and they wanted to calculate the average and the mean. And I'm like, I haven't studied that since college. I always get that mixed up. Like, what's the difference with average and mean? And they're like, average is actually where you add them up and you divide it by the count, where the mean is like if you put them in a sorted array, what's the middle element? It's like, oh yeah, okay, cool. And then I was able to like code the rest of the thing up. And like interviewers are willing to help you on that kind of stuff. Rockstar74, good to see you. Thanks for the follow. Appreciate having you in chat. Welcome to the stream. And so yeah, it's really interesting to see the contrast in those. Dota says, I'm trying to think of DevRel type companies. So there's not really like a developer relations company per se. Is like a lot of tech companies realize that they need to interact with the outside developer community at large. And so they start to build up these DevRel teams, and they'll either answer to marketing or they'll answer to customer service. Sometimes they'll answer to engineering. Sometimes it'll be some combination of all of those, because you're going to get kind of bits and pieces of information from all of them and go talk to the customer and then like bring that product feedback back to the team. And so there's a lot of interaction internally where you're kind of advocating for the customer. You are the customer's voice within the company to say, no, please don't make that change to the API. Customers have enough problems as it is. We need to do this instead. And so you do need to have technical background, technical skill around like what to build and why you want to like architect it in a particular way and like help drive that innovation. But then when the company makes a decision, says, this is what we're going to make, now to take that back to the customer and say, hey, we took your feedback. I took it back to the team. This is what we've talked about. These are the changes that we're going to make. And here's what you need to know about the new version coming out, blah, blah, blah. And then just getting them educated, building guides and walkthroughs on like how to upgrade to the latest and greatest, or, you know, things like that. So it's not really like a DevRel company. It's just companies are starting to recognize like if they're doing things like that. Rockstar with a raid. Hello. Appreciate the raid. Welcome, 65 new viewers. Welcome to the Tech Interview Guide. I'm Ian Douglas. I'm the author of this website, techinterview.guide, and I'm basically here to help people get better at tech interviews. So I'm here just to help people out. Zooey, good to see you in chat. Cool. Yeah, good luck with your interviews this week too. Let's stay in touch on LinkedIn. If you want to follow me on LinkedIn, you can. Here's my LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Don't just follow me. Connect with me on LinkedIn. If you can use my network to find people at companies you want introductions to, DM me, let me know. I'll make intros. I'm happy to help people network and so on. So yeah, I'm excited to have a whole bunch of new people here. So thanks for hanging out. We were just talking about kind of my job hunt myself. I'm looking for a job myself, and looking at developer relations jobs and how that's a very different interview process than like a typical software developer going for a leak code kind of challenge. But let's go back to Rockstar. So Rockstar, how was your stream? What do you do on your stream? I'm gonna go give you a follow back for bringing that raid in. Appreciate that. Let's go see what Rockstar is all about. Creator of Clipbot TV, NFTlist.me, and sponsors.dev. Cool, awesome. Well, appreciate you coming by. Thanks for that. Definitely follow you back. And yeah, good to have you all here. Stream was great. Did a ton of work on Discord bot. Oh, sweet. I really want to get into like Twitch bots and things like that too, and have a little more interaction. I've got like the typical sort of stream elements thing, watching for follows and stuff like that, but I would love to get into more automated bots and stuff like that. That would be pretty cool for sure. It's free real estate. Nice. Cool. Well, good to have everybody come by. So yeah, so I've been in the tech industry for 25 years. I've been a hiring manager. I've had all kinds of like architecture background. And so basically I run this whole stream just to help people get through tech interviews and give them my thoughts and perspectives on how to answer certain kinds of technical questions, behavioral questions, what the interview process is even like, things like that. I will admit to those of you coming over from Rockstar, I am blissfully ignorant about NFTs and a lot of the Web3 crypto kind of stuff. Doesn't mean I don't want to learn, but haven't had a good reason yet to dive down that rabbit hole yet. Still learning React myself and working towards some architecture certifications on AWS. And once I get that one, I'm going to go into Azure and Google Cloud and get their equivalents. Long-term goal is to get back into an architecture role, but the next role that I'm pursuing is getting into developer relations, which is kind of a developer advocacy / education kind of, as I was explaining when the raid came in, just being kind of that middleman or liaison between the customer and the product team within a company, and like giving the company feedback from the customer, and then going back to the customer and like helping educate them on like, these are the changes we've made and why, and helping with documentation and code samples and little project ideas, just to kind of get people up and running and things like that. And so Dota was asking like, is there like a DevRel company? It's like, no, a lot of companies are starting to bring on DevRel teams or build up those DevRel teams though, to help educate other people. And I found, being a software teacher myself at Turing here in the Denver region, that just being in the industry for a long time and having experience doesn't necessarily make you a good teacher. So you still have to learn how to teach people. And so like understanding different learning styles and how to document things properly, how to speak relatively eloquently without saying 15 million times like I do, but how to present yourself, how to present content, how to present ideas, how to kind of engage the community and so on. And so that's a big part of what I want to do as my next role. I've done it in the past and really enjoyed it. And when I left that role and got into teaching, it really like sunk into me of like, I really want to help teach people and educate people. So looking forward to some really good opportunities opening up with that. So we'll see how that plays out. Hope everybody's doing well with the new year. Anybody do anything fun and exciting over the holidays? We dodged some fires here in Colorado. We weren't affected ourselves, but some people that we know were, and so we're looking forward to helping them out this week. So I had to actually postpone an interview I was going to do tomorrow, but yeah, how's everybody else doing? What else is going on as far as anybody else on the job hunt? Anybody else interviewing? Feel free to drop questions in chat anytime. If you ever want a resume review, you can upload a resume to me in PDF format at this link. And on Sundays, I typically do resume reviews. Thursdays, I'm going to be having guests on the stream again. And so it'll be like me chatting with one other person. Got some really cool people lined up for January. Got the first 3 weeks covered in January on Thursdays. Hoping to get someone in for that 4th week as well. I'm going to be working on them this week. Hopefully get them on that 4th week, and then trying to plan out for February as well. Because yeah, I've got a lot of perspectives to share, but I want my stream to also be a place where other people can share their perspectives too. So I really appreciate folks like Dota hanging out in chat and others hanging out in chat that are actually sharing their background, their experience as well. like Trash Dev, if you're still in chat. It's good to have your perspectives as well. Go follow Trash Dev as well. Trash Dev does a lot of job-related stuff too, and resume reviews and so on, as well as the Jonan Show. There's a big contrast between Trash Dev and the Jonan Show and me as far as like not safe for work and family friendly and so on. I try to keep mine pretty PG rated. Jonan Show, they're a really good bunch, and it's basically Jonan Scheffler. He's the director of a DevRel team at New Relic, and he has a bunch of like code school grads part of his thing, and they call it like code school Q&A, where it's like all new, like new hire, new job, like fresh into tech kinds of advice, but you can just go ask them any kind of computer question and they'll share their knowledge there. And then there's Trash Dev, who, you know, like I said, loves to give resume reviews and also just talk about his job. He just got a job at a FANG company, and so he loves talking about that kind of stuff as well. So, but yeah, by all means, feel free to drop questions in chat. I'll try to pay attention to that as it streams by. But yeah, typically on Sundays, I'm doing like a Q&A type format, and then maybe resume reviews. I did have a resume come in, but I wasn't sure if that person intended it for it to be a private review or not. So I need to contact them back about whether that was meant to be a private review. So I don't want to share it on the stream until I hear back from them. But yeah, if you do want a resume review, drop it at that link. It's on the website, techinterview.guide/streaming. There's a form at the bottom of that page where you can just upload a resume to me. I'll get it via email. And then the only thing I ask is like anonymize your name, phone number, and email address. I won't actually click any links or anything like that on your resume. But if you ever want some feedback on what I think of your resume, I've been a hiring manager. I've looked at somewhere between 10 and 15,000 resumes in my career. I hired like dozens and dozens and dozens of people over the years, and done thousands of interviews. I'm actually approaching my 1100th interview on interviewing.io. I'm only a couple of interviews away from that, so I'm excited about that. So yeah, I do mock interviews on interviewing.io as well. If you want a referral code, I think it's interviewing-io. Yeah, so there's a referral code if you want to check that out. It is a paid platform, but you can sign up there, and you can actually book me for 3 sessions or 5 sessions. If you're a junior or intermediate dev, you can book me for a couple of sessions, and they'll defer your payments as well on the platform. So you can sign up, and then you can specifically request me for a coach, and they'll connect us from there. And I love helping people out. So those interviews do tend to be more leak code style tech challenges, but you get very, very good feedback from their interviewers as far as like what's working well in your process, what could you do better, and even if you do succeed, often get a lot of feedback about like, okay, you did the code, that all worked great, here's how you could have optimized it. Let's talk about runtime complexities and things like that, and a lot of the technical aspects that you might get asked in an actual interview. So go check out interviewing.io. I am a paid consultant on their platform. They don't sponsor the stream in any way, but it's more self-serving than anything. But if you want to check out that referral link, I don't think it gives you any benefit other than like saying that you subscribed through me, but they will defer your payments if you can't afford it. You can definitely talk to them about that. So, do I only do resume reviews on Sundays? No, I will do them occasionally on Thursdays, depending on what's going on. Sometimes the folks that I do have on the stream, I'll do resume reviews with them. Freeman Reddy, good to have you on the stream. Thanks for the follow. So I will occasionally, like while I have someone else on the stream, I'll have them do a resume review with me just to hear their perspective. I typically have done that in the past where the person has worked in HR or recruiting, or they are also an engineering manager. I've had all of the above on the stream in the past, and I've had all of them help me with resume reviews, because my opinion about a resume review is going to differ from what someone else thinks about your resume. So I always tell people, like, please go get lots of opinions about your resume. Don't ever just listen to me. The only benefit it would serve you to write a resume how I tell you to write a resume is if I'm hiring for a job that you want to apply to, because I'm going to look at that resume and go, wow, this resume is amazing. Aside from that, you don't have to take my advice ever on my resume reviews, but I will point out what I think stands out and what I like to see in a resume. And I've got a bunch of those on my YouTube channel already. So you can go check out a whole playlist on resume reviews there if you don't want to send me one, but you still want to get some ideas on things that I've shared with other people. you can definitely go check out those recordings as well. They're typically anywhere from 20 minutes to 45 minutes long, depending on the resume and depending on what sort of stands out there. But I've done a handful of them with other people on the stream, and so there will be a few of those on the playlist as well. Cool. I'm gonna hydrate a little bit. Ooh, I think I got over 300 followers now. Yeah, I'm right at 300 followers. Cool. Appreciate all the follows, everybody. No real like subscriber goals or follower goals or anything like that on the stream. I do this for free. I'm happy to kind of give back to the community and help build people up. So you don't have to subscribe. You don't have to buy merchandise or anything like that. But I do have t-shirts if you want like a t-shirt with the logo on it. But I only make like a couple of bucks on it anyway. So not a big deal. See what else is going on. So yeah, I got a handful of other interviews going on this week. Get over to that screen over there. What do I have going on this week? Got an intro call in the morning. Got another follow-up on Tuesday. That one's going to be more of a text screen. That's a second text screen. I did the first one on last Thursday with Datadog, and then this is the final one. If that one works out well, then I do a presentation for them to show off my public speaking skills. And if that works out, then maybe they'll make an offer. Got another company called Stackhawk. They're into InfoSec and like cloud security and so on, but also a developer relations role. And I thought I had another one somewhere. I got too many other mock interviews and stuff going on. Trying to find the other one now. I thought I had one with like Block or Square this week. And then, like I said, I also spoke with Postman last week as well. So they called kind of out of the blue. It was the first time in a long time that a recruiter directly called me, as opposed to setting up sending an email to actually schedule the call. They actually just called out of the blue, and I didn't recognize the number, so I had Android like screen the call, and they're like, "Oh, hey, it's so and so from such and such a company calling about the DevRel role." I'm like, "Oh, dang, let me answer the phone." So I apologize for screening the call, but I get a lot of spam, so I typically don't answer my phone when it rings, especially if I don't know the number. But yeah, it was the first time in a long time that a recruiter just straight up called off their resume. So, am I in Boston? No, I'm not in Boston. I'm in the Denver region. I'm right between Denver and Boulder. So if any of you watched the news and saw those fires coming through, I was kind of on the south edge of like the neighborhoods that were affected by the fire. So we weren't affected. We got a lot of the smoke because the wind was blowing this direction, but it didn't impact us. It didn't get close enough. The winds died down by late at night that they canceled the evacuation warnings and so on. So, but I was explaining at the very beginning of the stream, the neighborhood next to us was on evacuation alert, which means like if the fire had progressed, they would have been evacuated, and then our neighborhood would have been on alert. So it was close enough for us to like think about packing a bag and like getting out of Dodge. But thankfully we didn't need to. But we do know people that were affected, and so yeah, we're trying to find ways of helping them out this week. But yeah, it was scary, like just how quick it came through. Like I had a buddy that does plumbing. I got to get my hot water heater replaced, and he came by and he's like, "Yeah, did you see that fire going on?" I'm like, "No, I went out and checked my mailbox and I could smell something in the air, but I didn't know what it was." And he's like, "Yeah, there's this weird fire going on," and he had just like come down the 36 from Boulder, and he didn't even really see the fire, but he knew that there was a fire going on. I guess he caught like a little bit of it in the car, but it wasn't very much. But by the time he got here, it was like hitting that neighborhood, and they lost something like just under 1,000 buildings. So homes and businesses just completely destroyed, and like hundreds of people displaced. And then the day after the fire, the temperature dropped to like 15 Fahrenheit. so like way below freezing, and we got 8 inches of snow. So on top of them losing their house, they couldn't even get back to the house because it was like now the snow was happening and it was freezing cold. They had the neighborhoods all blocked off, so you couldn't even drive to where your house used to be to see if there was anything there. And so some people were like braving the cold just to do like a 2-mile hike to get to where their house is or was, to see if there was anything recoverable, and then hike back out and, you know, go try and find a hotel and stuff. It was ridiculous going on here. So huge outpouring of support from the communities around, just trying to help people out and like open their doors and help people out, and, you know, provide clothing and blankets and just everyday essentials. And thankfully some insurance companies are really stepping up and helping out. I've heard some good stories already of like, we didn't even have to call our insurance company. They called us and like wired us money to like start buying new clothes and stuff right away. And it was unbelievable like how quickly it went through. Then I read on the news this morning that they think it was arson, and they're actually they were executing a search warrant today to like go talk to some people about it. So scary stuff. But yeah, we're totally okay. Yeah, Nicole says we have a bug out bag for this reason. Yeah, I mean, hopefully that kind of stuff never happens. But we were at the point where we're telling our kids like at bedtime, it's like, hey, just in case, make sure you've got a change of clothes like out of your dresser, ready to go. Like if we need to get out of the house, we're gonna come wake you up. We expect you to get dressed like now, no hesitation, but pack some things in a backpack just in case. And so we were gonna be ready to go just in case. And I'm like, what do I pack up as far as like computer equipment? I got all this crap down here. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna walk away. I'll grab a laptop if I need to, and I'll just walk away from it. And thankfully, we didn't have to worry about it. But how often do the alerts happen quickly to get people out? Well, or how did they happen quickly? That's a good question. In the past, they've done like a reverse 911, as they call it, which is where 911 calls you saying GTFO, like you need to evacuate. But there's also like a national cell phone broadcast as well that can go out to say like you are impacted in an area and you need to get out, and or like don't go back. We didn't even get alerts though on our cell phones. I think it happened too quickly. Honestly, I think it happened too fast. RC Maniac says run backup software. I do. I actually like all of my streaming setup and whatever I push up to GitHub. So if I really needed to, I could pull everything back down from GitHub and get set back up. But that would be like the least of my concerns if my house burned down. Streaming would be the last thing on my mind. In Canada, there's an alert system. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, it's scary. I mean, a lot of people were, you know, like thinking about holidays, or they were out with friends, or, you know, out doing other things. And like, you know, you see all these videos of like people at Costco, like just shopping. And Costco's like broadcasting, like, get out of our building. You need to get out of here. Like, get far away. There's a fire coming. People are like, what the heck? And they walk outside and it's just smoke everywhere. They're like, where did this come from? So yeah, it was pretty ridiculous just how fast it came up. So, Mechalina, good to see you. Thanks for the follow. Appreciate that. Welcome to the stream. Some people would be in the dark for sure. You know, and the big concern was like, what do you do about like hospitals and stuff like that? They had to evacuate a hospital that was in the, you know, in the line of like where the fire was coming. So they had to evacuate a whole hospital, and that hospital was full of people that are like going through surgery or just out of surgery or dealing with COVID. And now they got to like move those people somewhere else. As if hospitals weren't full enough, they had to like go find like emergency overflow and stuff like that. It's pretty frightening. But you know, the emergency services, they kick into high gear around here, and they don't fool around. So Mechalina says, hello, Alina from Minnesota, new to the games industry, creating my own game and studio right now. Cool. Any tips on folks making a career pivot into games? So if you're going to be an indie developer, so I worked at Armor Games for a while, and that was a whole like indie sort of game platform at the time, although they were all Flash based back in the day. I do see a lot of indie games on Steam. So as far as like how to get, like, are you looking to hire people in gaming, or are you just looking to like start as a gamer and build your game? I guess I'm a little unclear about your question, Alina. Plug your game here, yeah, for sure. I mean, by all means, share a link to your game. I'm totally cool with that. But yeah, cell phone alerts can be localized and so on. You're hiring and fundraising. Cool. So I would say if you're hiring for game devs, the big thing to know there is like what skills do you need them to have on day one? And what are you willing to train them on for gaps in the knowledge that they don't have, but do have other skill that they can bring? So as an example, I interviewed at a company over the holidays where their whole tech stack was Scala and React, and I know neither. Like, I'm just learning React. And the interview went all right. I didn't do great. It was a technical kind of thing. It was a tech challenge. I think I did all right, but needed help on it, to be honest. It was in React. It was like, we're gonna like do this thing, like when we pick something from a drop down, we're gonna like go calculate some stats and like put that number on the page. I'm like, cool. I literally started learning React like 2 days ago. And they're like, well, we'll treat it like a pairing session. You tell me what you need and tell me what you're thinking and how you'd write your tests and so on. I think it went all right, but I decided to withdraw from the job because I would be getting into that job on day one not knowing any of their tech stack. Like, I wouldn't be strong in React, and I don't know Scala at all. So even if they were willing to make me a job offer, I'd still be walking in not understanding anything. And because they're a small startup, I didn't feel comfortable with it. So I actually withdrew as a job. So I would say that the number one thing for like any new company trying to hire is come up with a list of skills they absolutely must have. Like there's no argument, there's no discussion. They must have this particular skill. These things, if they have them, that would be nice to have, but they don't have to have these other technical skills, and that you're willing to train them on those skills. That would be the biggest thing that I could advise any company on, is be really flexible on skills that are nice to have, but you should hold your ground on skills you must have. Now, if you're a brand new company and you're trying to raise funding, I would treat it like a brand new startup where you need people that have all of the experience that you need to get this game off the ground and up and running. And so you want people that have experience in your platform of choice, whether it's a mobile game or Unreal Engine or something like that. Like, however you're developing your game, they need to have core competency in those skills. Absolutely. Like, you wouldn't bring on a junior dev that has never seen, Swift if you're building an iOS game. You don't want to hire somebody that's brand new. So I would say for a brand new company, you want people that can hit the ground running really quickly and have 80% of the skills that you need, and you're willing to train on the rest. But even that number, I think you need to be a little bit flexible if they've got a comparable skill. So just having a look through, you're creating Fitment, Duolingo meets Animal Crossing for exercise. That's kind of cool. Saw a lack of fun mobile fitness games, a lot of gamified options, but no games. Okay, building with Unity and Blender. Okay, so if you're building in Blender, they need to have Python. So that'll be number one. If you're going to be developing like Blender plugins and so on. Yeah, Unity would be C# usually. I think you can do it in C++, but C# is more common, I think, with Unity. So yeah, I would aim for like, what are the skills they must have? So say you must have experience in Unity and C#. That's a must have because that's what our game is built on, and you need people to kind of hit the ground running. The difficult thing with hiring when you're just starting out and you're trying to fundraise is trying to get people to work on your code for little or no money, which is a really difficult thing to do. If you've got any kind of funding to start out with, then you can offer them at least some amount of money. But I would make it not really contract based, but I would make it contingency based. Like, I've only got a certain amount of money in the bank, and so I need you to do this amount of work for this amount of money, however long it takes you. If you get it done in a month, then I pay you all that money in a month. If it takes you 6 months, you don't get that money until 6 months are up. But I would make it contingent on an amount of work for an amount of money, and not like an hourly wage or an annual wage. Just that way they're very deadline focused. A lot of contractors, like in house building and house repairs, work the same way. If you flat rate your project and say, I'm going to pay you $5,000 to renovate my bathroom, they'll get it done tomorrow because they want the $5,000 quickly. And so you do have to judge and qualify that they're competent and they're doing a good job. but I think you can, if they need to drag it out, they don't get the money until they finish. And so there's a balance to strike in there. That would be one way to do it if you've got funding to give in the first place. If you don't have any funding at all, it's going to be really difficult to like get people to buy in on this and willingly give, like, volunteer their time. It can be possible with new developers, like entry-level devs that are trying to build experience, to have them work for free, but I'm really not a fan of people doing things for free. I think you need to get paid what you're worth and get paid for your effort. But it's really hard when you're a brand new company trying to start out. And so I would say, like, as much of the fundraising as you can do ahead of time and like manage on your own, I would advise to go that route, just so you have something that you can pay people, and not just promise them equity, because I got a box of Kleenex over here that's worth as much as your equity. And I always tell people, like, I don't mean to offend with that, but that's the truth. Equity is valueless until there's a good exit to the company, and so, or a good outcome for the company. And so I always tell people, like, don't work for free if you can help it. If you really can't help it, or you really do want to volunteer because it's something that you do believe in, it's your time if you want to give that away for free. But it can be really tricky to convince people to come work for you if you don't have money to pay them. But again, if you can set some money aside and say, hey, I've got like $5,000 that I can pay, and I need this amount of work done, however long it takes you, you can get that money. I'll pay you in installments or something, or as you hit milestones towards that goal, you can pay them like bits of that money or something like that. Give them some money up front, give them some in the middle, and then pay them the rest at the end when they deliver the code. Like, almost treat it like a contractor kind of thing, helping you out. That would be probably my advice on that. If it's already in beta, oh, sorry, I missed some stuff in chat. I think someone's talking about like the color of your username or something on there. Opti21, thanks for the follow too, by the way. Yeah, I would say if you've already got users using it, like if you have like a beta of the game and you've already got some adoption, you just need like people to continue to work on it, then I would reach out to some of the people that play your game and just say, like, hey, if you really enjoy this game and you happen to be a mobile developer and you want to like continue to support the game, like, we're looking for people to help us out. That way you're going to get the most passionate people, as opposed to just like someone that wants to get into some kind of gaming sort of studio someday. If you can reach out to the people that already play your game, those people are already going to be pretty passionate about it. So I would start there maybe. Currently bootstrapping, just getting started. I would call us more first playable alpha stage right now. Okay. So same kind of thing. If you've got some alpha players on your platform, reach out to them and see if any of them have experience, or say like, hey, if you find a bug and you're a developer and you happen to know how to fix that kind of bug, we would love to talk to you and like do like a bug bounty kind of thing, or almost like a bug bounty where you're actually paying them to help implement new features and things like that. That might be one way to go on that. Nicole says, I interned for a small gaming startup a couple of years ago. They bent over backwards to pay me something, even though I told them it was okay. Best intern experience I ever had. Not because of the money, but because they were awesome people. Yeah. And occasionally you will find really quality companies, and those are companies where you want to go back and like work either at the company again, or as those people kind of disperse and like go work elsewhere, you're like following them and you want to go work with them again. I've had a couple of folks in my career where just serendipitous, we ended up like back at a same company again. And it's always great having familiar faces where you've already got some camaraderie and you know how to work together and things like that. I've worked with a couple of people twice. I can think of at least 3 different people that I've worked with at different jobs. And it's always cool, like bringing them back in, like, hey, I've got this friend that would be like a really good fit on the team, and like you end up working there together again. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, I would do it almost like a bug bounty and say, like, we're looking for someone just to come in and implement a feature. We have like a minimal amount of money, so if you can implement that feature for $500 or $1,000, however long it takes you, we'll pay you when it's done, but we need it done within like 3 weeks or something like that. But if you get it done in a couple of days, we'll pay you all that money in a couple of days. Sign non-disclosures and do like a 1099 sort of contract thing, as opposed to like trying to hire someone full time, because then you're into like all the benefits and Social Security and all that kind of stuff that you have to pay. So I would just do it as a 1099 contractor. 3 people right now, mostly full-time on it, 2 other people doing it for funsies. That's cool. Cool. Awesome. Well, that was fun. What else is going on? Anybody else got things going on? I'd pay the other 2 full-time before hiring unless I'm missing something. Yeah, I mean that's a possibility too. I mean, if you're in the middle of fundraising, well, I mean those would be the first people to get like a chunk of that funding. I think is like pay them for the time that they have put in. Like have them. Hopefully they've been tracking their time, but you know, pay them their value for the amount of time and the amount of effort that they've put in. I mean, that would be a good way to get started, depending on how much you fundraise, because sometimes like seed rounds aren't incredibly big. Sometimes they're only like 50K to maybe 100K, and that's not really enough to pay a ton of people for a long time, but you can pay them for a little bit. But yeah, it would be one way definitely to kind of reward the people that have been helping you out so far. Yeah, whether they're owners or like, you know, if you consider them co-founders or if you consider them sort of like, you know, volunteer employees. But if they're also founders like you, where like nobody's getting paid, then that's you know, kind of beside the point. But when it comes to fundraising, it's also like, how are you going to raise money, you know, on this game? Are you doing like microtransactions? Are you doing like, you know, downloadable content, you know, that you pay for later on? Like all those kinds of considerations would go into like a pitch deck and all that stuff. But you know all that. I'm not gonna tell you all that. I've been in enough startups to know all about pitch decks and how to sell all that stuff. But anyway, going from 3 to 4 would be a big hire. Yeah. I mean, that would be the other thing to consider, is if you do hire somebody, like how are the other 2 people going to feel about you now paying one person and not them? So I would definitely spread some of that money around a little bit if possible. I think that would just help build that good relationship between you and the other employees. Cool. Love to pay the team, them first before me as well. Yeah. Oh, they are co-founders. Okay, cool. So yeah, I mean, if you're all co-founders and you're all working for free, and you're all stocking up on the main equity anyway. So cool. Yeah, and appreciate everyone else in chat too, helping out and giving Alina some thoughts there too. Cool. I'm gonna go click on that link just to go check out that game too. Let me scroll back up. Fitment.com. Fit micro workouts into your life and into your pocket. It's cool. Very playful kind of game. I'm curious whether, do you work with wearables, or how are you actually like tracking the exercise and so on? I think that would be the question there. Cool. I like the landing page. Very fun for sure. Normally you offer equity or something in that scenario. Maybe. I mean the founders are already going to get equity. Anybody that you're bringing on after that to pay them, you would also give them a decent amount of equity. They're not coming in at a founder level of equity. Founders are always going to get way more equity than everybody else. But you know, you could give them like 1% or 0.5% of your shares, depending on how many outstanding shares you have. But give them some incentive to stick around too. Paying people in equity always feels a little weird, because again, like equity doesn't really have external value other than to your investors, and to you as a company. Obviously that equity is worth something. It's tangible to you as a company, but outside of the company, it doesn't mean anything. Like they can't go to the bank and say like, can I pay my rent with this equity? It's not gonna be worth anything. That happened back in like 2000. The first .com bust that happened in 2001, people were financing houses on equity, and banks were like, oh yeah, we heard all about this like ridiculous like online business, and that company's worth billions and billions, so sure, we'll let you use your equity as collateral to like finance a house. And then that company goes under and that equity is not worth anything, and they're like, we would like some equity for that house, please. And suddenly people are refinancing houses left and right, and it got really bad back in 2001. So yeah, a lot of banks since then, they learned the lesson of like equity is actually worthless until like an exit event actually happens. But You want to hear my thoughts on differences between profit sharing versus equity? I've seen companies do both. I've seen companies do profit sharing as like a bonus structure. So it really depends on the profitability you want to make as a company. But I have seen companies do profit sharing with like just everyone on the team. Like, you know, we're gonna reserve like 10% of our profit, and we're just gonna split it evenly across everybody on the team. Or, you know, if engineering had to go like above and beyond to like get something out, maybe the engineering team gets like a slightly higher percentage, so those people get a little bit more. Or, you know what, we made some marketing goal because, you know, something went viral on Twitter about them, so the marketing team's going to get a little extra push that quarter or something like that. I've seen companies do it quarterly. I've seen them do it annually. It really depends on what sort of profit share you're willing to do. When it comes to profit share versus equity, I mean, as an employee in a startup, I would prefer the profit sharing because that's tangible dollars in the bank, as opposed to equity, which I've got to turn around and invest in the company in order to get the equity and then wait for an exit event for that equity to be worth something to me. And I've done that. I've invested in several companies in the past. I've bought my options and, you know, one of them I waited almost not quite a decade. See, I bought them in 2008, 2009, and I cashed them out. They went public in 2014. Yeah, 2014. So it took a good like 6-7 years for them to go public. And so I'm sitting on this certificate going, I hope this is worth something someday. And it was. It gave me a down payment on a house. But like for a lot of people, like investing in that equity, it can feel good to them because now they actually own something. But until that company goes public or there's an acquisition or something, that stock certificate's actually not worth tangible dollars outside. They could maybe sell it on secondary market, or if you as a company want to do a buyback or something, then they can get tangible dollars for it. But as an employee, I would be more willing at a seed stage startup to do profit share as opposed to equity. But I've also been in enough startups that have been successful enough to know that those seed round equity valuations, you know, where you're buying your shares for like 5 cents or 10 cents as opposed to like buying them for dollars, you know, years down the road, is actually way more lucrative. So it really depends on their level of experience and how much they're willing to invest. Maybe give the employee the option and say, do you prefer one or the other? Or if you can afford it, do both. You know, put some split of your profit back into the company and pay your employees like a quarterly, almost like a dividend kind of thing. If you're the first dev on the team, you're effectively the CTO. Yeah, and that actually happens at a lot of startups. The first, like the primary developer is typically the CTO. But yeah, when it comes to the equity split, I've typically seen similar to what HFW levels said in chat, like 30-30-30 and then 10% for everybody else. But it also depends on the investors. So sometimes there's like a 50-50 split or like a 49-51 split where 51% stays with the company and 49 is to the investors. And then of the 51%, like the founders each get like a good like 10-15%, and then the rest are just the general pool for other employees. But it really depends on how you're trying to raise your funding. If you're only trying to sell like 20% of your business or something, then those ratios get thrown off a little bit. But yeah, typically the founders have way more equity investment, or like the word I'm looking for. They get like a much higher percentage of the equity of the company because they're founders. And then everyone else, like typical employees, like as the company grows and you raise more rounds, you have to generate more shares and things like that. So I always tell people, like, even if you get equity and you calculate, like, I own, you know, potentially 1% of the company, it's like, yeah, but the next round of funding, that's going to turn into like 0.5% or 0.25%. Because, you know, when a company raises a new round of funding, they don't just dip into the existing share of pools, they generate more shares out of thin air, which dilutes everything else. It's the typical way that's happened in my experience. So that's why I said 1%. Yeah. So, you know, you might get like 1% of the company today, but like 4 years from now, if there's been stock splits and dilutions and things like that, you might it might only be like 0.2% down the road, but that's fine. The amount of shares you have is still fixed at a fixed price and a fixed quantity, and like it's still going to be worth tangible dollars hopefully someday. But I always tell people, like, don't get hung up on the percentage, because, you know, unless there's a reverse split, your 1% is never going to get bigger. You know, even if they give you more, like on an anniversary or something, they give you more shares or more equity later on, because there's still going to be dilution happening. Your 1% is still shrinking. Even if they add on top of it, it's never going to stay at 1% all the time. They would have to give you like enormous amounts of equity at that point. So I would say for that first employee that you bring in, you're typically going to be like around the 1 to 2% kind of equity range. But yeah, I mean, you could consider doing a profit share as well. Really depends on what kind of profit you expect to make on the product, and then how much of that you're willing to kind of split and share with everyone else, and how much of it has to go back into the company to keep the company running. So the VC will take 50%, not necessarily. I mean, you know, like you see all these people going on Shark Tank, for example, and they're like, we're looking for $300,000 for 5% stake in their company. That means they're going to give the investor 5% of the equity. So it won't always be a 50-50 split. In fact, it won't ever be exactly 50-50. Like more shares have to stay with the founders, because you don't want your investors taking over your company. So, but yeah, I mean, you would never give like your first employee like 10% of your company either. Like that's almost founder level shares at that point. And then there's like, oh wow, just had a mind blank on me. There's like preferred stock. There's like different kinds of stock. And so you'll have like, of the, you know, we're going to make 1 million shares in the company, and so many of them are like preferred shares, which means those can get cashed out first, and everything else is like common shares, which is what the employees get. And so the founders and the investors will typically get the preferred shares, which they can cash out earlier or sometimes at any time. You know, if there's something going on. I actually worked at one startup where one of the founders actually cashed out most of their equity because they wanted to raise a round of funding and not dilute everybody else's shares. And so one of the founders actually cashed out most of their equity so that the investors could have that as their equity. And so the dilution was a lot less. And so it kind of helped everybody else within the company. Otherwise, the stock price or the strike price would have been enormous. And you know, when your strike price starts getting into the dollars per share, it's a lot harder to convince people to invest in your company, like the employees to invest back into the company. Like I think one company I was at, they were in like the $10 to $15 range as a strike price. And also when your strike price is that high, you still want the amount of equity to be like, you know, maybe $15,000 to $20,000 worth of equity over 4 years. And so, you know, you're only giving them like a couple hundred shares at that point, which doesn't sound as impressive as like starting in a seed stage, you know, startup where you're like, we're going to give you like 100,000 shares. And you're like, I'm going to be a gazillionaire someday. I mean, you hope that that'll happen, but yeah, like I said, it's a gamble. It's a gamble. But yeah, the platform looks pretty cool. I'm definitely going to check out that site a little bit more. Cool. What else is going on? Anybody else got anything? Otherwise, I might start to wind down for the night and might go finish a puzzle. I really get in. So one of the things I typically ask for at Christmas is jigsaw puzzles. So I've been tweeting some of the puzzles that I've been working on. One of them was this like enormous. It was like 1,500 piece picture of like the Northern Lights, but it was all like digitally composed. So it was a range of colors that you'd never see on the Northern Lights, and it was really hard with all the color gradients and stuff. It took me several days to put that one together. And then I did a 500 piece like Marvel Infinity War with like Thanos and Black Order at the top and all the Avengers down at the bottom. And that one I put together in a couple of hours. And then I did a Black Panther one that took about a day, because most of it was like black and gray, and like you don't have a lot of color variation in the puzzle. And then the one I'm doing right now is like one of those pictures where it's like a whole bunch of like suitcases or a whole bunch of doors and like all different colors. So I almost finished that one last night. I stayed up way too late last night, but I'm gonna probably finish that one and then go to bed early. Got a busy couple of days coming up helping people out, and then got some intro interviews and stuff to do in the morning. So out of curiosity, what did I stream when you had no or few viewers? Oh, that's a good question. I have had a couple of streams where like literally nobody showed up, and that's fine. I have Q&A. Like I've got lists of questions that people submit to me to answer. And so like tonight was meant to be a Q&A where I was going to like go through my typical format of like, okay, next question, somebody asked blah, 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 and here's how I would answer that question. And so, yeah, I've got like a running list of questions. So on evenings where like people don't show up and don't chat as much, I just go through a list of questions. And then later on I go in and I trim those videos into like smaller segments. And those have been the videos that I've, historically been putting up on YouTube and then turning the audio into my podcast. I did put a pause on those, even though I did a bunch of Q&As in December. I didn't slice those videos up just because I was interviewing and I was busy like preparing for things. And so I actually didn't go through and slice those videos up. But I do want to get back to that this week and next week and start getting that stuff back on YouTube and get the podcast started back up again. So you can go check out the podcast. It's on Apple and Google and Spotify, and I think I tried to submit it to Pandora, but I don't think Pandora picked it up. But it's on Apple and Google. If you do happen to find the podcast, just look for Tech Interview Guide or Tech Interview Guide podcast. Give it a like listen to a couple of episodes and just like them or leave a review or something so other people can find it. I get way more views after the fact on YouTube and the podcast than I do like people coming live, and that's fine. I have no problem with that. I know the time of day that I do the stream isn't always conducive to having people stay and hang out for a long time, but I'm just here to help people out. So yeah, you can always go back and check all the stuff. And usually once I finish a recording here, I put it up on YouTube anyway. And so if you do ever miss an episode and you're like, oh, Ian was having someone on and you wanted to watch, it'll always be up on YouTube after the fact. So cool. I think I'm going to wind down. I'm going to hydrate a little more and, just kind of kick back. So Thursday, like I said, I've got someone on the stream named Jamora coming on. They're a code school grad, and they've got some interesting perspective on like job hunt and things like that they want to share. So I'm pretty pumped to have them on the stream. So that'll be this Thursday, and then the following Thursday, I've got someone named Eric Garcia coming on the stream, and the week after that, I've got Mike Chen. Mike Chen also streams here on Twitch. I think his username is generic Mike Chen. And he does like front end interview challenges. So the one he just did the other day was like do like a Bitcoin to regular currency conversion or something like every 10 seconds, or like when someone types in an amount of Bitcoin, like convert an amount of currency to the number of Bitcoin or something given the conversion rate right now, kind of thing. And so it went and hit an API in real time and like updated a page. And so he walked through that as a technical challenge, and the person gave them feedback at the end. And so you don't find a lot of actual technical challenges like that at companies, but there are companies out there that do those kinds of challenges. I hope some of you that are job hunting can go find those kinds of companies, because just doing the LeetCode grind really is garbage. LeetCode problems need to go away. Not that they need to go away. Companies need to do a better job picking the LeetCode problem to be more in line with what they do as a company, and not just pick some random, thing off of LeetCode because they don't know what else to ask in an interview. They need to spend some time actually like forming a proper interview process with good questions and good process and how to like understand the signals that they're getting from the candidate. So if you're watching this and you want my thoughts on your interview process, reach out to me. I will happily consult and sit in on some of your interviews and give you some feedback on how I think you're doing your interviews, and tell you how you can make them a little more engaging and maybe get better signals. That was part of why I actually registered iandouglas.com now as an LLC, so I can start getting into that kind of consulting work as well. I'm going to be doing some consulting for a couple of other groups like Year One and another one called Speak, which are aiming to get more diversity in the tech industry. So I'm going to be helping them with some curriculum over the month of January as well. Haven't heard back from Year One yet, but this other group called Speak, they basically get hired by a company to teach people about their interview process and then how to train them to get ready for their interviews. And so it's going to be like helping them with the curriculum and like what do you need to learn and how do you go learn these algorithms and you know, build little projects and whatever to look like a good candidate for that job. So I'm going to do some consulting for them, and so yeah, I figured I better get like an actual business in place, or at least renew the business that I used to run in California. So cool. I'm going to wrap up. Let's see, is there anybody online to raid? Who else is online? Chris Perillo's online. Chris is fun to go hang out with. He's usually nerding out on Star Wars stuff or 3D printing. He's 3D printing something. He's wearing a BBA t-shirt. Let's see who else is online. Some music that I listen to. Sith Lord Brit is all about 3D printing. Nobody really coding tonight. Anybody got any coders that they follow that we can go raid? Somebody building a dream gaming PC. How many people doing software development tonight? It's usually pretty quiet on a Sunday night for raiding other streams, but if anybody has any suggestions for who to go raid, I'm happy to carry on the raid. Someone's building like a platform adventure game. I don't know this person at all. So we can go raid some random person. How do y'all feel about raiding some random user? Looks like they're doing some kind of game development in Unreal Engine. So let's go check that out. We'll raid them. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out, everybody. I will get this video up on YouTube. Like, subscribe, do all this stuff. I'm bad at marketing, so you need to help me. Spread the word. Let your friends know that that I do this stream. And we'll see you on Thursday, same time. And like I said, Thursdays we'll be having some guests. So we'll catch you next time. And have a great week, everybody. Stay safe.